All right, whoa, slow down. Merab, please, I would have called you, by the way. If I had your phone number and I knew how to reach you, I would have called you. I got to come at you like this, though. Look, Merab has come out with a statement, and it was today. It was today to my eyes, which means he could have put it out late last night. He's going to wait. He's going to wait until Sean O'Malley and Aljo do their rematch. And once they rematch, that will then open the door for Merab to come into a title fight. But between now and then, he's going to wait. Okay, I stop it. I go back to the very first word. I read the whole thing again. Because there's room that's open for interpretation, right? Like, Merab is definitely fluent in English, for sure. It's not his native tongue. So sometimes you gotta kind of read, and you gotta make sure that everything's just right in the same order. When Merab said he was going to wait, I had hoped and assumed that meant I'm going to wait to take my title opportunity. I'm going to wait to zero in and bring my fan base and start using whatever bureaucracy I have learned within this sport to go after the title opportunity, regardless of who the champion is. In this case, it's Sugar Sean, but regardless, it's just an opportunity for the belt. That's not what it was. I assumed wrong, and I'm glad that I reread it, because what Merab is saying is, I'm going to wait, meaning I'm going to do nothing else. My next fight will be for the belt. I am willing to wait. In fact, he qualifies it by saying, I'm even willing to wait a year if that is what it takes. Now, the reason I'm saying timeout, I'm not going to get in the way of the friendship. And I've seen many people try to do this over the history of our sport, and it generally works. Somebody tries to get in the way of a teammate's friendship. They don't like, right? People will demand loyalty within sport. Martial arts, they'll talk about honor and respect. There's nothing more honorable and respectful than having loyalty, by the way. But as soon as somebody actually tries to show it, then all of a sudden we're not doing martial arts here. We're in a business, and I'm not going to get in the way of it. And I've seen it happen, and it's a very easy thing to do. You don't get the guys together. You do an interview over here. Maybe you quote them. Maybe you team up with some weird question. Maybe you even misquote him just to get the headlines out there. Then the other guy hears, then he's got to change his stance. He got to change his stance. And all of a sudden, Rashad Evans is headed out to Florida, and Jon Jones is staying at the gym in Albuquerque, right? I mean, it's like one of these things where this does work, and I don't have any interest in that at all. Not even a little bit of this is my intent. My intent is something different, which is to just tell Merab, okay, what is the litmus test for this, though? If you're willing to stand down and wait for Aljo to have his rematch with Sugar Sean, of which Merab believes that Aljo's going to win and then go up to 145 pounds. But what I'm sharing for you is that when your phone rings and you're given an opportunity, no matter how massive that opportunity is, when you turn it down and try to talk about, I've won 9 fights in a row, I've proven who I am, is that contingent on the fact that Aljo has a backdoor deal, that he's had a conversation, he's got a reasonable expectation that he will get Sean somewhere in the near future? Because if not, it would really seem as though Merab is risking his career. Merab is great. He's a great talent. And he's beaten former world champions. He's beaten Jose Aldo, who is consensusly one of the greats to have ever done it. Like, Merab does have the paper and resume. We don't do anything in this sport based on paper and resume. Merab's got a beautiful ranking. We don't even know where to find the rankings. I would guess Merab is ranked number 3. I don't know, and I can't confirm it because I don't know where to do that at. So, what I'm sharing for you, the only way you can wait, and over the 30 years that they've been setting that octagon up, you could count on way less than one hand how many guys waited and had it work out for them. But for the guys that you could identify spread over those 30 years, they will all have one thing in common, which is they have the mandate of the masses. They are wildly popular and famous guys. They are stars who know how, in between fights, to keep that star nice and shiny and bright, which is a trick and an art all into itself. I mean, completely in and to itself. If you're not fighting, how do you stay in the media? And I do not believe, as much as I like Merab, that he is equipped with that skill. In fact, I'm not even sure that he knows that it is a skill. I'm not even sure that he's aware that it's something that has to be done. And I don't say that to be disrespectful. There's very few guys that understand what's actually going on here. And a guy will always show you who he is. If he comes out and tells you, I've won 9 of my last fight over world champion, okay, he's in the second category. Okay. The champion of the world in the division right now, who is Sean O'Malley, did not win 9 UFC fights to get there. Just so you understand. Like, that isn't the criteria. If it was the criteria, Sean wouldn't be the champion of the world right now. It is not a criteria. Stipe Miocic, who will be fighting for a world championship next, not only didn't win 9 of his last fights, he didn't win his last fight. Just so you understand. But I don't know that Merab does. So if there is something at play, and that is what his teammate is going to do, and that was the deal that they made, and even if they ran into a little bit of a road bump here, we're gonna straighten things out. We're gonna get the bus back on Main Street. It's not my business. I would stand back. I would fully understand that. I'm not convinced that Merab is the #1 contender. I don't think it's a clear-cut contender. I think you could turn to Merab on any given night. Sure I do. But I don't think he's a clear-cut contender. There's a guy named Nurmagomedov. I don't know a damn thing about him. The time I was going to learn about him was going to be in Boston last week, and he didn't show up. But I do know that he's undefeated. I do know that. I want to say it's like 16-0. So by Merab's criteria that you apparently need 9 straight somewhere, well, this guy's got 16 straight. Even if I have his record wrong, I'm just sharing for you. Of course Merab's in front of him. Of course he is. But not according to Merab. Merab said if you've got 9-0, so now all I got to do is find a guy that won 10. According to him, just to win the argument with him. That's not how it works. And I could only imagine a year from now trying to resurrect an argument that isn't working today. When I heard of potential #1 contenders, I thought it was Corey Sandhagen for a number of reasons. Now I know that things change very quickly. I would have to assume that Aljo, as champion, falls down 1 notch. Considering there's 1 completed round and he won it, I would assume he falls into the #1 position. He goes from champion to #1. But he didn't call for the match. And simultaneously, you have Chito Vera, who's been doing some very beautiful things himself, beating world champions himself. Oh, and by the way, was on the exact same card and is the only guy, according to everyone except the Sugar State Athletic Commission, to have the only win over Sean O'Malley. So it's just one of these situations where if Merab wants to wait, I would not get in the way. Nobody's asking him to fight Sterling. And for a while, that was the comparison. Hey, you're doing great. You look like a #1 contender. Here's the champion. Well, I'm not going to fight him. Okay, great. But that's not the situation that we're in now. So if there is going to be a waiting process, but you understand that Aljo isn't next for Sean, it looks as though Chito is. And we don't even have a date on that, but in a best-case scenario, it's the very end of the year known as December. Now, that's going to be a tough card to get on, considering Leon and Colby have already been earmarked for that, and now we're armed with the fact that Volk wants on that same card. It's going to be really hard to get 3 title fights on 1 card, which means now we're going into 2024, and that's just for the fight that is the fight before there would even be an opportunity to get Aljo and Sean back together. And I just don't want to see Merab make that mistake. We're not asking. See, I got to be really clear on this because loyalty matters to Merab. And right now is his chance to flinch and say, I've done this too long. But he's not doing that. He has proven who he is. And it turns out he's an awesome guy that you can count on. But the scenario is not the same, Merab. Nobody's saying that you're the #1 contender and you have to go fight your friend. That's no longer the situation. And there's no guarantees of how Cheeto versus Sean is going to go. And as a matter of fact, if it goes the way the last one did, right, where it's just everything changes really, really fast. I believe the record for title defenses in that division is Aljo, and I believe the number's 2. If I'm wrong, it's 3. That's in the history of the sport. That's a hot potato. And things change really fast. I don't want Merab to misunderstand that or think he's the number one contender now, and of course he's going to be a number one contender a year from now. I don't believe he is the number one contender right now, and if he sits out a year, he's anything but. Whatever his ranking is going to be pulled if you wait X amount of time. It's a very important moment. And if the number one goal here is to prove your loyalty, Merab, I promise you have. And you are respected for it, and it is honorable. I just want to remind you, when that deal was made, it was so that you didn't fight Aljo. You're not being asked to fight Aljo. You're changing the deal, and you're stacking the deck against yourself.